Tupac. He really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all.
And if Pac was alive, then it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
Now, once he got on, did he ever reach back to you?
Yeah, Jay had me come and do Summer Jam with him one year. I think that was the time when he had that.
Big Daddy Kane just dropped a bomb that's flipping the Jay-Z narrative on its head. He's not just reminiscing, he's exposing. Because the story we've all been told about Jay's rise, it left out some serious loyalty issues. Kane was the guy who gave Jay his first real shot, put him on stage, put him in ciphers, and even vouched for him in the industry. But as Jay climbed the ranks, Kane's name seemed to vanish from the story. Not a shout-out, not a cosign, just silence. And here's the twist. Kane's comments don't just throw shade at Jay, they connect all the way back to Tupac. While Kane was handing Jay the keys in the East, Pac was sounding alarms, calling out fake rappers, shady industry moves, and yes, sending warning shots Jay's way. So the real question is, did Jay-Z build his empire off the backs of the very legends who tried to lift him up? Or was it all just part of a bigger, colder plan? Keep watching. We're just getting started.
Hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
Back when Jay-Z was just another hungry rapper trying to get noticed, one man put his reputation on the line, Big Daddy Kane. This was the early 90s during Kane's legendary Chocolate City tour. And instead of keeping the spotlight all to himself, Kane let Jay hit the stage, freestyling in front of packed crowds while Kane switched outfits backstage. But the support didn't stop there. Kane took it even further behind the scenes, helping Jay-Z record tracks and personally shopping his demo to the major labels. And believe it or not, most labels weren't feeling Jay at all. His flow, too unconventional. His style, too risky. So imagine the grind, one of the biggest names in hip-hop backing you. And still, the industry says no. That rejection could have ended Jay's career before it began, if not for Kane's belief. But here's the kicker. How many times have you heard Jay-Z tell that part of the story?
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, you know, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
Even after every label passed, Big Daddy Kane never gave up on Jay-Z. He saw the potential, the raw edge, the fire, and he believed Jay would evolve into a force. And he was right. Jay-Z did rise. But once the spotlight hit, the shout-out stopped. Here's where it gets cold. Kane helped shape Jay's early flow. Fast, smooth, aggressive. And that influence is undeniable. But in Jay's later interviews, documentaries, and even his memoir Decoded, Kane barely gets more than a footnote. A quick nod about learning stage presence, then nothing. No tribute, no deep credit, just silence. And that silence spoke volumes. Rumors even swirled that Jay-Z mocked Kane in his 1999 track Do It Again, when he spit, 3 cuts in your eyebrows trying to wild out. Sound familiar? Kane's signature look back in the day was those 3 eyebrow slashes. It was his brand. So was that just a bar or a subtle diss? Even radio legend Angie Martinez weighed in, suggesting the line was a shot at Kane, though Kane publicly brushed it off. But privately, he noticed. He felt it, especially since Jay had once studied him closely backstage, practically building his early persona in Kane's shadow. Then, as Jay leaned deeper into his gangster hustler image, Kane quietly stepped aside. And now, years later, he's asking himself, did Jay leave him out of the story on purpose?
I remember actually having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
Big Daddy Kane wasn't the only one noticing the shift. Just as Kane began stepping back from the spotlight, Tupac was stepping up, and he was calling out the industry's dark side loud and clear. Pac had a sharp eye for the game. He saw the culture changing, from lyrical substance and raw truth to flashy image, fast money, and strategic branding. And one name that started creeping into that new wave? Jay-Z. Behind the scenes, rumors were swirling that Jay-Z felt threatened by Tupac. Not because Jay lacked skill, his pen was sharp, but because Pac had that intangible power, that aura, the type of presence you can't teach or fake. As Pac got louder, the tension got real. Right before Tupac's death, the smoke turned into actual fire. Jay and Pac were officially beefing. And the spark? Jay linked up with Biggie to drop Brooklyn's Finest, a track that was far from subtle. Jay and Big, both Bed-Stuy natives, had grown tight by the mid-90s. In 1996, they released that infamous track on Jay's Reasonable Doubt, and it hit like a warning shot across coasts. But behind the scenes, Irv Gotti, one of Jay's closest collaborators, begged him not to do it. He knew the temperature of the East versus West beef, and putting Biggie on that track, that was like throwing gasoline on a wildfire.
You gotta go back to Brooklyn's Finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand?
At first, Tupac and Biggie were tight. Brothers in rhyme, not rivals. But that all came crashing down in 1994. That year, Pac was shot 5 times in a brazen robbery at Quad Studios in New York. It wasn't just the bullets that cut deep. It was the silence. Pac felt betrayed. He believed Biggie and Diddy knew something. Maybe not the full plan, but enough to warn him. And the fact that no warning ever came, that felt like a knife to the back. Pac never let that go. He believed they stood by and watched him walk into a setup. But Biggie, he always denied it. Said he was just as blindsided as everyone else. Still, once trust is broken, there's no going back.
Yeah, I think Pac is more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie, whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac was upset.
After the Quad Studio shooting, the gloves came off. Tupac and Biggie went from brothers in bars to public enemies. They weren't just trading bars, they were trading bullets through music. Not long before Jay-Z dropped Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie unleashed Who Shot Ya? And fans didn't see it as coincidence. They saw it as a direct shot, one aimed right at Pac's trauma. By this point, the East Coast versus West Coast war wasn't just simmering, it was boiling. And this is exactly why Irv Gotti told Jay-Z, hold back, this is not the time. But Jay didn't listen. He released Brooklyn's Finest anyway. And with that, the fuse was lit. Biggie's verse didn't pull punches either. He went straight for Pac, mocking him, hinting at that rumor about Faith Evans, and even calling him his son. That wasn't a diss. That was a declaration of war.
And what Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's Finest. If they have twins, you probably have 2 Pacs. Get it? 2 Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
After Biggie's jab, Pac didn't just respond, he came out swinging. He name-dropped Jay-Z in Bomb First, My Second Reply, and Faute, Tomo Friend, making it crystal clear where he stood. At that point, fans were bracing for a full-blown lyrical war. They waited for Jay to clap back. But that moment never came. Why? Because just weeks later, Tupac was gunned down in Las Vegas. The mic went cold before the beef could explode. But here's the plot twist most fans missed. Jay-Z did write a response, a savage diss track called Scathing, loaded with venom aimed straight at Pac. He shelved it while Pac was alive. But after Pac's death, Jay performed it live at the Apollo. According to DJ Clark Kent, the lyrics were brutal, so harsh the crowd gasped. Jay had something to get off his chest, and with Pac gone, he finally let it fly. He wasn't just responding, He was venting years of fear and resentment.
And it's funny because before he performed the record, he was like, yo, no disrespect to the dead, but you just can't say whatever.
Oh, so he actually performed it after Pac passed?
Yeah. Yeah, we was at the Apollo. It was, I will say this, if you can find anybody who was at that show and the Apollo was packed, they will tell you that it was absolutely crazy, the things he was saying. I was like, Lord Jesus. Like when you know when you hear something, it's one thing, but then when you hear it performed, it's like, jeez. It was super tough.
So here's the $1 million question. Why would Jay-Z wait until after Tupac's death to perform a diss track? The answer might be darker than you think. Insiders say Jay wasn't just being strategic. He was relieved when Pac passed, because deep down, Jay knew he could never eclipse Tupac's legacy. Tupac had that untouchable aura, that magnetic presence. And Jay, he was still in his shadow. But it gets even deeper. Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, dropped a wild claim. Jay was so intimidated by Pac that he once stayed locked in his Vegas hotel room. Why? Because Pac and his crew were in the city, and Jay didn't want that smoke. He skipped a whole show to avoid crossing paths. That's not competition, that's fear.
The story is that Jay was gonna try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now. And they wasn't gonna let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't gonna come out the hotel. He was gonna miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared in the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clearance.
Here's where things get shady. Jay-Z never fired a direct shot at Tupac while Pac was alive, but that doesn't mean he stayed silent. Instead, Jay and his East Coast crew were tossing subliminal jabs left and right, strategic shots, designed to poke at Pac's temper because they knew he'd explode. And he did. But behind the scenes, people in the game say Jay wasn't just calculated, he was jealous. Pac had that raw magnetism, that once-in-a-generation energy. Jay had the bars, sure, but he couldn't touch Pac's charisma. Even Nas exposed it in an interview. He said Jay once claimed he was a better rapper than Biggie. And when Nas pushed back, Jay doubled down, saying Tupac and DMX weren't even real lyricists. Nas was stunned. He told him straight up, Pac was the greatest, period. But that's just the start of why some fans call Jay a snake. Because even after the rumors started flying about Diddy being connected to Pac's death, Jay stayed loyal to Diddy. And when Pac and Biggie were both gone, Diddy didn't crown someone new. He started hyping up Jay-Z, saying Jay was the one who stepped in to replace them. But ask yourself, was Jay really the heir to the throne? Or was he standing on the graves of the kings before him?
Bro, you filled them shoes though. You came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in and I just know how much Big like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like two people, because that's all it was those two people, and they had like the game, they had things on lock. Hov was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hov really kept Hov kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, take it even higher.
Now here's where it all comes full circle. For years, Jay-Z kept close ties with Diddy, even while controversy swirled around him. But then, boom, Cassie's explosive 2023 lawsuit hit, and suddenly, Jay's got memory loss? Now he's out here claiming he and Diddy weren't even close? Really? So let's get real. What are we actually looking at here? Big Daddy Kane, disappointed. Tupac, warning us years in advance. And Jay, moving like a chess master, stepping over everyone in silence. We're not just talking about borrowed bars. We're talking about borrowed blueprints. And then, discarding the architects. Yes, Jay-Z's talent is undeniable, but so is the trail of silence, shade, and shadows behind him. And now, industry vets are finally speaking out. Whispers of betrayal, of cold, calculated moves that helped shape one of hip-hop's biggest empires. So now I'm asking you, was Jay-Z just playing the game better than anyone else? Or did he step on the very people who opened the door for him? Did he ghost Kane after he got famous? Was he really threatened by Tupac's energy? And what does it say about a legacy when it's built on closed doors and erased names? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.